Detroit plays under a dome? Who would have thought? This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Trosian, and this is RamView, the January 17th, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. So Detroit plays under a dome, right? So I don't want to beat this up too much, but it does need to be beaten in a little bit, okay? I make the reference to the KBM. I call it the Kiss Butt Media because it just gets weaker and weaker by the day, and they're not really media. I'm talking about sports, and they really don't ask any questions, right, or anything of any substance. And so I bring this up because they don't know everything, and they shouldn't be treated as if they do know everything. And I've used the Rams as an example, but let's go even further. Getting ready for next week's game against the Lions, a female reporter asked Todd Bowles how the Buccaneers were going to deal with the frigid weather in Detroit. You're an NFL reporter, and you don't know the Detroit Lions play under a dome. How on earth, how are you employed? Why are there thousands of other sports writers that were put into the street that know their business, and this individual has a job? How is that, right? How is that? How does that happen? I don't get how that happens. Bowles just kind of like grins and shrugs and says, they play under a dome, right? They've been in a dome since the mid 70s. And so, yeah, there's a lot of incompetence out there. And so I bring this up because I just want you to know is that sometimes we say, oh, they said it on Rams this or Rams that, or the NFL said, you know what? Look at it. If you've invested time into the game, if you've studied the game, if you've played the game, go with what you know in terms of making decisions, choices, or forming an opinion. You don't just have to subvert your thoughts to their thoughts, because I'm telling you, they do not know. I know because I rub shoulders with them in the press box. They don't know. I've heard reporters on the field. Well, I've gone through all that. Anyway, as I've said, not everyone's Michelle Tafoya. It was kind of reminding me of a question Bowles was asked way back when by a male reporter about his relationship with Mike Tomlin, and the two of them being the few black head coaches in the league. And Bowles answered that they never think about that they coach ball. That's what they do. Then a female reporter jumped in and asked Bowles, as a black man, do you understand the importance of representation about others seeing you for inspiration? And Bowles just shook his head and wouldn't bite. He just said, hey, we're the oddballs because people keep making it out to be that way. Stop talking about it and it goes away. And again, the media not knowing how to do their job, not even knowing if there's a dome in Detroit, but are going to solve all the social issues by pestering one of the few black coaches in the NFL. And there's more growing, so that's great. I love it when a black head coach gets a job or a new GM is black or a minority, because it just shuts down all the narratives, and you really don't know what the press is going to talk about anymore, but they keep searching. I'll finish with this part. Do you know I learned to throw a football? And I could, in my day, at one time, before my shoulder was snap, crackle, pop, I could throw a Voight football close to 60 yards. A Voight football, not an NFL football. And who did I model my throwing motion after? I modeled my throwing motion after James Harris. Do I look like anything like James Harris? But no, I wanted to play like James Harris. I don't need to see a half-breed Welsh Armenian to be inspired to do anything. So I'm not saying turn off the media. I'm saying just don't be so quick to give them all the credibility in the world. And, I'm waiting for somebody, to ask Patrick Mahomes how long he's been a black quarterback. Okay, let's get out of there. Let's get to the Rams And thank you guys for clicking on. And Drew W., thank you for clicking on. And I will be answering that question in a bit. Oh, you mentioned Wes Welker. There you go. I will get into that question there, Drew W. Rams have 41.3 rocks this offseason, according to Over the Cap. If you count the rollover money, which Spot Track does, they got 48 rocks to play with, millions to play with in this offseason when it comes to free agency and re-signing players in the next draft class. And so they do have money. And some things you're going to see that pops up, and I'm not trying to pander or be somewhat pedantic or anything, but when you see things like RFA next to a player's name, it means restricted free agent. It's a player that has 3 years of experience, and the team, and they're free to negotiate with any team, but the original team gets to offer them a qualifying offer or a tender to keep them with the club. Unrestricted free agents are UFAs, and then there's exclusive rights free agents. A UFA, an unrestricted free agent, is a player with 4 more seasons, and they're on an expired contract, and they can do anything they want, and the Rams can still get compensation for them. And then you'll see a weird one, an ERFA. That's an exclusive rights free agent, which means they have less than 2 years or 2 years or less of NFL experience, and that means they don't have any latitude at all. You know, if your team wants you back, you're going back to that team. You'll see that for Ronnie Rivers this offseason. So the Rams free agents are Kevin Dotson. Alaric Jackson is a restricted free agent, so he'll likely be back. Carson Wentz, Demarcus Robinson, Akilla Witherspoon, John Johnson, Jonah Williams, a restricted free agent, Christian Roseboom, a restricted free agent, and Jordan Fuller. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael Hoyt is a restricted free agent. I've named the guys that are starters. And then there's Jordan Fuller, who's an unrestricted free agent. I could see the Rams doing all sorts of things there to bring these guys back. According to one site, Akilla Witherspoon's market is 20 and a half rocks for 2 years. That's not terrible, but you want to think about what are the Rams going to do in the draft, right? He's played well. We would want him back, but you don't want to overpay. And it just depends what other teams are offering him. Of course, you want Carson Wentz back. I think we all want Carson Wentz back, just so we don't have to worry about who our backup is. I think everyone wants Demarcus Robinson back, but I think Sean McVay sprinkled the magic dust on him, and he could end up taking advantage and springboarding into a bigger contract. Kevin Dotson, I think he's a priority, but he's projected 17 rocks. And what happens when somebody makes him an offer and maybe becomes a slight bidding war? I really want Kevin Dotson back, but it's just something to think about. John Johnson, it's up in the air. I don't know. I would bring him back. He's still fairly young, and he doesn't cost any money. And then Jordan Fuller, I don't dislike Jordan Fuller, but I don't know if Jordan Fuller stands out any more than Nick Scott or better than Taylor Rapp the last year. And he got burned a lot, but Rams don't re-sign safeties. It would be a first if they did. Other players that are free agents, but in that lesser category, Ronnie Rivers, he'll be back. And then guys that are open to go, Austin Trammell, Laurel Murchison, Bryson Hopkins, Duke Shelley, Troy Reeder, and Tremaine Ankrum. The 3 guys that I'm least thinking the Rams are going to bring back are Fuller, Hopkins, and probably Tremaine Ankrum. Just about everybody on the practice squad was given a futures contract. Everybody, Xavier Smith, the 2 tight ends, Kalinick and Forrestall, Dresser Wynn, Zach Van Valkenburg, Zach Thomas, all these guys, Cam McCutcheon, Mike McAllister, who I think the Rams have some plans for, as well as AJ Akuri and Logan Bruss. All these guys are coming back. The most interesting name that wasn't on the futures contract list was Marquise Copeland, who has spent a lot of time with the Rams and got significant playing time in 2022 and seemed to be ahead of Jonah Williams on the depth chart. But I didn't see him in the futures contract. If somebody did, let me know. Again, speaking about things going into next year, there is, again, the narrative around Cooper Kupp, and is he going to be healthy? I want to see him next year because I don't think he was healthy. So 7 months off, maybe everything snaps back into place. The Rams are invested in him for another 3 years. Right now, he's 30. Next year, he'll be 31. He has cap hits the next 3 years at 29.7, 29.7 and 27.3 rocks. And in 2026, he'll be 33. And we're already starting to see the little bit of a breakdown. He had 5 great years, 5 solid years, and then we're starting to see a breakdown. And that's the question about that comes up with these players. Sometimes their bodies just can't continue. The Rams drafted Lawrence McCutcheon. I call this the McCutcheon syndrome. The Rams drafted Lawrence McCutcheon in the second round in 1972. He didn't carry the ball once in 72. Chuck Knox installed him for the next 5 years, 73 through 77. He was one of the best running backs in football. 78, he injured a hamstring, and by 79, he was done. In Cup's 6th season, injured, he got injured, and all the injuries have set in. He's got hamstring stuff, and he doesn't look the same. And I'll even throw this in. After 5 years of pounding, from 83 through 87 with Dickerson with the Rams, can I ask you, how many highlights do we see of Dickerson running those long breakaway runs with Indy, the Raiders, or even the Falcons? Todd Gurley's run was even shorter, but we think that was an arthritic knee. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer here, so I'll keep it a little bit of little positivity. Steven Jackson could be an outlier, right? Steven Jackson was with the Rams for 9 years, and he had 8 1,000-yard seasons. And so just stuff to think about. But again, Steven Jackson had the body of a Terminator. And again, just wanted to share that real quick. Around the NFL and other places, did you see the games Monday night? Baker Mayfield, right? I thought Baker Mayfield looked great. I thought he looked fantastic. And I think he stuck a dagger into Nick Sirianni's tenure in Philadelphia. That was a bad game on Monday night for the Eagles. In fact, I've seen Division 14, not Division 4, Division 14 high school football teams tackle better than the Eagles did. That was atrocious. That was awful. I'm a sports writer by trade, but I can imagine the coaches watching that across the country and just getting sick to their stomach on how poorly the Eagles tackled. And so I got to believe there is some kind of movement coming in Philly, something worth keeping an eye on. Today, I heard an argument on ESPN radio. I was driving my daughter to school this morning, and they were arguing, and one individual was comparing league MVPs with Super Bowl titles. That, you needed league MVP and a Super Bowl title to be, considered the best. And you might have won a Super Bowl, but you don't have an MVP, as if they're the same. I just couldn't believe it. Was the most inane argument you've ever heard. Every player on the planet would rather have Super Bowl rings than be a NFL MVP. NFL MVP is icing on the cake, and I just couldn't believe it was something that was happening. But I think it came from someone trying to defend Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson should win his second MVP, right? I'm absolutely down with that. I've become somewhat of a pro Lamar because you just see his game improving and you see him working hard. He is a leader and everything. But if Lamar Jackson has another flame out this postseason, the narrative around him will strengthen because there's no postseason, highlights for him, right? And my thing I worry about him, and I don't know if I'm rooting for Baltimore or Houston in this game. Houston's kind of exciting, but in regards to Lamar, not playing since December 31st, that's the last time he played. By the time he takes the field on Saturday, it will have been 3 full weeks since he's played. I don't think that's doing him or the Ravens any favors, especially with a confident Houston team coming to town who's recently been hit, right? You want to get hit and get your mind into the game. So just something to think about there. Around the NFL and other places and going to other places, I'm kind of getting tired of hearing about Caleb Williams, and I think Caleb Williams is hurting himself. This idea, I'm not going to go here, I'm not going to go there. Now, other quarterbacks have done it in the past. I get it. But, this is a narrative that's been going on. I'm using the word narrative a lot. This is the story about Williams that's been going on for a while when it looked like the Cardinals could have had the first pick. His dad said he could go back to college, and then you heard things about wanting some ownership, and you wanted some of these things and in your team. And I don't get it. The kid should just play ball. I don't think the Bears is a horrible situation to go to. I'm guessing he wants to go to Washington because that's where he's from. But I'm just guessing he's got some bad advisors right now. And there's always a lot of people wanting a piece of somebody when they think they're on the ascent, and because they'll gain when his well comes in. The sad part is for those players is that when they're on the descent, everybody disappears. Note to Caleb, Perform well, and you'll be running whatever franchise you go to. Perform well, and you'll run whatever franchise you go to. Play to your ability, and you'll run that franchise. And I wouldn't use Kyler Murray in Arizona as example. Kyler Murray is not even close to Caleb Williams, I don't think. But we got to see Caleb do it in the NFL. But Kyler Murray authored much of his struggle in the Valley of the Sun with his disposition and his attitude. Speaking of playoffs, who's got pressure and who's still playing with house money? I think at this point, the house money goes to the Packers, the Buccaneers, wherever they finish. If they win or lose on Sunday or this weekend, they've had great seasons. A little less so for the Lions, but nothing's going to take away the division title and the first round win over the Rams. And so they're going to see their season. There's not going to be any pressure on Detroit. There's going to be all kinds of stuff like looking bright, right? Texans, same thing. Texans are playing with house money, and they're going to play free and easy, and they're amped up and they're excited and ready to go. And I'll even say this about the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs have reached a point now where it's always Super Bowl or bust, but 3 Super Bowls, 2 rings, and all the stuff they've been through this year. I don't know if there's that much pressure on them either, except this. I will say this pressure is on the Chiefs, is they've never won on the road because they haven't had to play on the road. And I could just see everyone turning that into a lengthy off-season rant and discussion that, the Chiefs have never proven they can win on the road, even though they've been to 3 Super Bowls and have 2 rings. Pressure this weekend is squarely on the 49ers. This is their window. I don't think their window stays open this wide next year if they don't get there. In fact, I think it starts to contract. For Buffalo, I think the pressure is on Buffalo to finally get there. Buffalo, because Sean McDermott is the 3rd version of Chuck Knox. The team is always there, can't get in. Buffalo feels like the 70s Rams. They've got to get in, right? I don't know if they have to win it, but they got to get to Las Vegas. And then the Ravens, of course. I think everyone was drinking a lot of Raven Kool-Aid, and I get it. They go to Frisco, they go to Levi Stadium, they blow out the Niners. They brought in all the weapons supposedly for Lamar. Lamar's taking his game to another level. Todd Monken has had a great effect where, they're not running all the design runs. They're letting Lamar throw, and he's picking and choosing and running out of necessity. And he's been fantastic, and he should be the MVP. But I think the pressure is on Baltimore to win. That anything less than a Super Bowl appearance would be considered a loss. Looking at Jason Kelce retiring, he's a Hall of Famer, yes. But don't you feel like people have kind of come to the party late on Jason Kelce? When they were winning the Super Bowl against the Patriots, no one was talking about Jason Kelce. I think between his brother, between his podcast, I think his profile has risen in the appearance last year. I like Jason Kelce, absolutely Hall of Famer. But I think a lot of folks are kind of just, I don't know. I'll skip it. I won't go that far. Everyone's really blowing it up. Coaching carousel. We know the Patriots, they hired Gerard Mayo. He gave a great press conference today. That was cool to see. Seahawks, Tennessee, Taxkins. Now, the Taxkins did hire Adam Peters as their GM. Falcons, Carolina, Chargers, and the Raiders. The word is they're very close to hiring Antonio Pierce. And when you see all these coaching interviews and everything going on, you have to wonder if maybe it's time to modify the Rooney Rule. Because it just looks like all these teams are just window dressing, right? You have to have 2 sit-downs, interviews with 2 minorities before you can hire a head coach, right? That's the rule. So what do? They just bring in anybody and everybody. They're not going to hire. And I'm surprised at some of the minority coaches that they just said, hey, am I really coming in for an interview? Or is this just window dressing so you can get the person you want? And I have to wonder about that. Also, I wonder about this. Have you heard Eric Bieniemy's name anywhere this offseason? So far, since the Taxkin season ended, I haven't heard a word about Eric Bieniemy. That's kind of interesting, especially with all these openings. And, there's rumors in Pittsburgh about Tomlin, who walked off the stage. There's the Dallas situation and, of course, the Philly situation. These jobs aren't open, but if they do, that would mean that there would be 11 coaching changes this season. That's more than a third of the league. All right. I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I get to do RamView, and I write books. My books are on Amazon. type in joetarosian.com. I've written a couple high school football novels that have been well received, and you can check them out there. And check out our sponsors, Kistler Law, and as well as Temple City Auto Repair. They allow me to do this because my day job is I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. You can find us right here on our Burbank Faith virtual channel on YouTube, as well as other places in and around social media. And if you have any questions about that stuff, feel free to reach out to me. Drew W. did have the question. The Rams would be unstoppable if we added a Wes Welker type receiver to this team. That would be interesting. It would be interesting because, we don't think Tutu Atwell is going to be that guy. I think there's a role for Atwell to play, but it might not be this. And then, Kupp's coming back, Nakua's coming back, but then the real question boils down to what happens to Demarcus Robinson, right? Has he played himself into a more lucrative contract, and do the Rams want to invest in that? And so it would be nice to see what nice to see is be a young Cooper Kupp who broke in with Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods. It would be nice to have a young Cooper Kupp playing that slot position, a la Edelman, a la Welker, a la Amendola, right? And that could build a rapport these next 2 or 3 seasons, at least 2 seasons, with Matthew Stafford. I fully agree. I fully agree with that. That's a great point. All right, guys, if you have any more questions, feel free to throw them. And if you're just tuning in to Joe, why were you on so early? Sorry, guys, business just required me to go on early today. If you have questions and you want to put them in the box after we're done, I'll be happy to answer them there. So appreciate all of you. Our numbers have really leaped up, and so we're very appreciative. And we're going to be here all year. We're not really going to take a break. We're going to be on 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Check us out on Spotify. Check out my website, joetarosian.com. I just did some cleaning up there. I posted a brief article there about Rams cornerbacks and how many cornerbacks they've drafted in the first round during the Super Bowl era. And if you could check that out, that would be awesome. All right, Rams update. Tyler Higbee, I think everyone heard the news. I don't know if you needed the news, but ACL and MCL. And the belief is he will not be ready by September. So Davis Allen becomes really important. Hunter Long has another year left in his contract, but his season ended in Baltimore with a knee injury. And Bryson Hopkins is a free agent. So you have to think a tight end is in play for the Rams in the back half of the draft. And that's exactly where they drafted Davis Allen this past year, 5th round, 175th overall out of Clemson. And so just something to keep an eye on going forward. And then Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams had surgery on a busted bone in his hand. So if the Rams had won, he probably wouldn't have gone to Tampa Bay to play. Other news here. Oh, in regards to that article, you could go check it out. Just type it. Should be on there someplace, joetarosian.com. I'll make sure it's in the mentions there. But the article, I just kind of wrote an article talking about how since 1966, since the Common Era, since the merger, since the Super Bowl era, the Rams have been in 48 drafts. They've only drafted a cornerback 3 times. In 1985, they drafted Jerry Gray. Worked out real well. They drafted in 91. They drafted Todd Light. Worked out real well. And then in 2006, they drafted Ty Hill. Did not work out so well. And you can check that out there. I did also mention Clancy Williams. He was drafted in 65 before the Common Era, but I felt he deserved mention because he seems to be forgotten in Rams history. Speaking of gone but not forgotten in Rams history, these are the former Rams still dancing in the playoffs. For the Bills, former Rams left guard David Edwards, safety Taylor Rapp, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, and coaches Rob Boris, Corey Harkey, and Aaron Cromer. Rob Boris was the guy that ascended from tight ends coach to OC under Jeff Fisher, and we knew how that worked out. The Chiefs have Steve Spagnuolo as their DC, and this is Spagnuolo Day. This is the day the Rams hired Spagnuolo, Coach Spags, and we could talk about that in a minute just briefly. And of course, playing for the Chiefs is the greatest Ram to never play for the team, Creed Humphrey, because you never hear the whining stop on that one. For the Texans, Case Keenum and Robert Woods. For the 49ers, backup quarterback Brandon Allen. Remember Brandon Allen was with the Rams, I think, in 2018, and he's alive and kicking in Frisco. And then Sebastian Joseph Day is also there in the Bay. The Packers, on their practice squad, they got Robert Rochelle, David Long Jr., two former Ram cornerbacks that they got rid of Rochelle real fast, right? 2 seasons he was gone. And then, of course, David Long played out his option with the Rams and really was a free agent, played a little bit with the Raiders this year. He's bounced around. David Long was the last time the Rams drafted a cornerback in the top 100. They drafted him 79th overall in 2019 out of Michigan, and he never really ever panned out. Also with the Packers is Matt Orzech, our former long snapper. And then, of course, Joe Barry is the DC. And you know what? People weren't in on Joe Barry. I get it. I didn't really care one way or the other. But I got to tell you, after the Packers won in Dallas, I love Joe Barry. Joe Barry, man, put his name in a ring of honor. Anybody that beats Dallas is my favorite. The Lions, of course, Jared Goff, Josh Reynolds, Jake McQuaid, their long snapper. And then, of course, the Rams Euro project the previous 2 years, Max Percher, who spent this year on the Lions practice squad, has yet to play down in the NFL. And their coaches, Hank Fraley played with the Rams, closed out his career with the Rams, and the great Dre Bly, cornerback for the Rams, who had some nice years with the team in St. Louis. The Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, John Wolford, Richard LeCount III, who was with the Rams late last season and this offseason. Greg Gaines, who had a nice play on the tush push. You saw him get under Kelsey in the tush push. And then coaches Skip Pete and quarterback Thaddeus Lewis. Thaddeus Lewis was with the Rams some of those early teen years in St. Louis. I think he made the roster once, but he kept getting bounced. And he was a running quarterback who could throw a little bit, maybe a little bit before his time. I just thought that was kind of cool to get that in there. Saturday, I'm not going to give game predictions just yet. I'll save that for Friday. The Texans are going to Baltimore. Ravens lead that series all time, 10-2. They've only met once in the postseason, and that was a game where you may remember where Houston went to Baltimore and TJ Yates had to play quarterback. He threw 3 picks. Last note on that is the Texans have never won in Baltimore. Packers, 49ers. I think it's very doable. The Packers could win this game. I do. For when I talked about Lamar Jackson being off for 3 weeks, pretty much so have most of those 49ers. And Packers lead the series 34-28-1 all time. Postseason, Frisco has a 5-4 advantage. Green Bay won the first 3 meetings. And then in 1999, Terrell Owens made that great catch in the end zone that gave Frisco that win. Green Bay won again in 2002, but Frisco has won the last 4 playoff meetings between these teams at Lambeau and in Frisco. So something to think about. But I got to believe the Packers have nothing to lose, and they're going to play free and easy. And I think they could give some fits. And I think one of the points that someone has made about Brock Purdy, I don't like any of the points people made about Brock Purdy. I don't think he was MVP, but I think he's displayed a very good arm, done a lot of good things. You know, everyone talks about the processing, but I do agree on this. We've never really seen in a playoff situation, and it's still early in his career, what if Brock Purdy has to play from behind? And he's facing a defense that just gets to tee it up and pin their ears back and come after the quarterback. And that would be something to think about with Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and even pretty nasty Kenny Clark playing for the Packers. On Sunday, you got Buccaneers Lions. All time, Detroit leads the series 32-28. I think people forget that they were AFC Central foes for years. They've met once in the playoffs, and the Buccaneers won. Tampa Bay built up to a 20-0 lead at home. Barry Sanders was held to 65 yards. The Lions quarterbacks that day were Scott Mitchell and Frank Reich. The Tampa Bay quarterback was Trent Dilfer, but their running backs, Warwick Dunn and Mike Allstott. How's that for a backfield, man? What do you think Sean McVay could do with a backfield of Warwick Dunn and Mike Allstott, right? Both can run, both can catch the ball. That would be pretty interesting. Chiefs Bills. A lot of pressure here on the Bills. Bills lead the series 29-24-1. Postseason, the Bills lead 3-2. And here's an interesting thing. They met the Bills and Chiefs met in Buffalo on New Year's Day, 1967, and KC won 31-7 and earned the right to go to Super Bowl one. Think about that. Bills had a home game and they fell apart. They sacked Lynn Dawson 9 times that day, but he threw a pair of TD passes, and the Chiefs defense held Jack Kemp and the rest of that Bills offense at bay. But wouldn't that be interesting to think? Have you ever thought about that? It could have been Packers Bills in the first Super Bowl. Just something to throw out there. As I said, if some outside noise is kind of breaking in here. On this day in 2009, the Rams hired Steve Spagnuolo. The Rams in 2007 had gone 3-13. In 2008, they had gone 2-14. And then under Spagnuolo in his first year, they went 1-15. But I think because of the coaching tree he was coming off of, the Coughlin tree and all that, everyone thought, hey, we got something here, right? And so everyone was patient with the 1-15 Rams in 2009. And then in 2010, it appeared to pay off. The Rams won 7 games. They were 7-7-1 going into the last game of the season. That was that Sunday night game in Seattle. And they lost. I think they lost to Charlie Whitehurst, and the Seahawks got to go to the playoffs that year, and the Rams went home. But you felt really good about it until the following year, when I think the Rams only won 2 games, and Coach Spags was out, and Jeff Fisher was brought in. Also, on this date in 2022, the playoffs right after the 2021 season, the Rams won a wild card game against the Arizona Cardinals in SoFi. 34-11. That was the game when we were talking about earlier where Kyler Murray kind of has authored some of his own issues. He was very disinterested that day, didn't want to run. He just basically looked like he didn't want anymore. His body language was terrible, and it reflected the Rams just killed the Cardinals. Now, the thing that people forget is that the first meetings between the Cardinals and the Rams in early 2021, the Cardinals came into SoFi and they beat the Rams. And then the Rams won. After the Rams were going through that really bad stretch in November, the Rams won a critical game there, and with all the players, right? I think Havenstein had COVID. Jalen Ramsey on the plane or getting on the plane. They said, oh, no, you got COVID. And that's where Alaric Jackson stepped in. And the legendary Kareem Orr who got his one playing time with the Rams, and they won. And that was probably key. And the Rams had to win. The Rams had the Cardinals at home for the wild card, and they won that one before going to Tampa Bay the following week. Just I thought I'd throw it out there. Also, if it's okay to mention really quick here, on January 18th, which is tomorrow, we want to remember the birth of Myron Patios, who was a Rams middle linebacker in the George Allen era, and then Tommy Pauly, linebacker from Florida State, who played really well for the Rams. He was drafted 42nd overall. And then on that date, January 18th, Skeets Quinlan, a halfback for the Rams out of San Diego State from Texas, was an All-Pro in 90. Pro Bowl in 54, but he had some good years with the Rams. Of course, everyone forgets, but we just like to remember Skeets Quinlan passed away in 1998 at the age of 69. And then on January 18th, 2011, the Rams hired Josh McDaniels. Yes, that Josh McDaniels, fresh off his firing from Denver to be the Rams OC in 2011, and we know how the 2011 season turned out for the Rams. So wanted to get that stuff in there. I think we got it. It was a stone groove. Tim Powers, hey Joe, I modeled my throwing motion after Garo Yepremian. Garo Yepremian, that's kind of like what I look like right now, because I hurt my shoulder. If I could hold my shoulder up to the microphone, you hear snap, crackle, pop. It sounds like a bowl of Rice Krispies. But all right, I think we're cool. We will be here, like I said, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. When you get a chance, check out joetarosian.com and for some more little more Ram content. And then we'll be here all year. We're not taking a break. We're going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and looking forward to it. And please check us out on Spotify. And if you have any questions afterwards, throw them out there, and we'll go. All right, guys. God bless. Take care. Have a great day. We'll see you on Friday.